Shake it, everybody. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of House Divided right here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff. He's Chad. We're bumblebeeing it today, just so you know. Yes, SRone45 is right. Go ahead, like the video right now. Give us the benefit of doubt that the time that you will invest will be well spent and that it will be worthy of your spending 2 seconds to click a button. Like that video. Subscribe to the page, get notifications, and by all means, comment away. You can jump into the Specs chat and do it live, or you can do it when the video is over with and just do it in the YouTube comments. Either way, we do appreciate all of your participation. Mr. Hastings, I'm kind of tickled pink for a variety of reasons. Can I count them out?
Good grief, tickled pink.
Tickled pink, which... boy, as an expression, just is probably used exactly the right amount that it needs to be.
Yes, and usually only by women that are at least 70.
Day one of our Daily in Black / Orange Bloods as a platform silent auctions wrapped up. And I don't have the final numbers yet completely in place, but it looks like we will have raised north of $8,000 on day one for Texas baseball NIL as we wrap up the first set of auctions. We've just launched day two of auctions. So if you can keep that pace up, you're talking about $40,000 raised over the course of 5 days. Our goal is 100,000 Daily in Black's goal, I should say. I'm in working with them over the course of 12 months. So it would be a really good start. If you're interested, we will have links all over our socials, or you can go to orangebloods.com, but we've got a bunch of badass items on the auction list that will go until noon tomorrow, including a 2024 Texas Longhorns team full-size autographed helmet, 62, if I counted the numbers correctly, 62 members of the current team on the helmet, including Arch, just throwing that out there. So that's reason number one. Good first day on the silent auctions. Pleased. Number two, we're getting ready to talk about Anthony Hill today. And I think it's going to be a really good conversation. But the reason why I'm tickled pink about it, right? The reason why I'm going to those extremes. Alex just 35 minutes ago posted an article on orangebloods.com where the headline is Nansen is cooking up an Anthony Hill monster.
Look at that.
That leads me to believe that this evening at 6:00, when Football with Friends airs, we may have outflanked them on the Anthony Hill front.
Just a lot of good Anthony Hill. If y'all are really into zero today, today's your day. This is it.
By the way, the number one item listed on today's silent auction items over at orangebloods.com, an autographed Anthony Hill number 0 jersey and an autograph. They're a package deal together, an autographed mini helmet of Anthony Hill on one of those screaming Longhorn helmets.
Oh, the Screaming Bevo.
The Screaming Bevo, yes.
Just one-time catch, one-time night game against ULM. I want to see it.
I'm okay with that.
Just sneak them out there against a weird nobody non-con. Don't even tell anybody you're going to do it. Do an old school Lou Holtz Notre Dame. All right, boys, we're going to go in and we're just going to slap on green jerseys. Screw them all if they don't love it. That's what Texas needs to do one time.
Well, let's talk about Mr. Not 0, just 0. Although
real quick catch. Before you do, just one order of business. I've been accused of not paying attention to the chat. This one hopefully means I am. So Tracy chatted about Oscar coming in hot already. I think what happened is Oscar put in a super chat because somebody says, damn, super chat before the show even starts. This will be fun. Check on your side. I don't see it. I don't see an Oscar super chat.
I don't either.
Okay. So I don't know what the ultimate protocol is. Oscar, we would hate to have you.
Oscar, just send it again, but not as a super chat.
Yeah, send it again. We'll assume the money got through somehow, but I am not seeing it. So go ahead and send us what it was so we can get there. I just wanted to make sure we clarify that because apparently it's great. Apparently it's a great super chat, and I want to actually see it. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, Catch. So in terms of Anthony Hill, where do we start on this discussion today?
Well, hold on. One thing I'm going to try to do. Oh, I found it.
You got it.
I found it. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
So Oscar for $9.99. It says Sark looking like a lean, mean coaching machine. Don't know if he lost a bunch of weight or what, but he looks dialed in on the Rich Eisen show. 12-0 with a natty. He put it in all caps. I'm sold. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
Man. Okay. So Oscar's going with the lean, mean national championship machine. He thinks it's all come together now. As opposed to what? Was Sark sloppy? Was he a slob that I didn't notice?
Well, look. Was he sloppy? No. Did he have like some man boobs? Remember when they got grabbed?
I don't know.
I think that's called married like dad weight.
Oh, you think he put on some dad weight?
Okay. I think he did a little bit. You get married and suddenly you're not what you're not in is going out to impress shape.
Oh, I do remember comfort weight. That's a real thing.
He's got a little comfort weight that getting married does to a man.
I still got some around here somewhere.
But if he's in single weight, and I think he's lean, mean fight machine. It's funny how that happens. Best way for me to probably add, 5 years, 10 years to my life is my wife divorces me and I lose a bunch of weight because I got to get back out on the dating scene.
Please don't.
So it's like, honey, if you really love me,
oh God,
leave me, because then I got to get my ass in shape to find somebody new.
That sounds like a badass country song from back in the day from somebody that doesn't care. That sounds like a Waylon Jennings song is what that is. That's a Waylon song. If you love me, leave me, because then I'll live longer. That's a Waylon song if I ever heard one.
So, thank you, Oscar. I think we get the super chat, even if, I think we got it.
Yeah, it's just that when they send it right before the show, sometimes we haven't been able to see that. I'm glad you were able to see it, though. For some reason, it doesn't show up on my end.
Well, I didn't find it in Restream. I went into the actual YouTube chat.
Look at you.
By the way, I gave myself a like up to 32 on the video.
Boom! 32!
I just went ahead and hit the like button, did what I said everybody else should do. All right, so let's jump into the Anthony Hill thing. We got Oscar super chat. I think we're clear of the super chats for the moment. I was doing a video earlier today, recording one. And we were talking about naming, because I believe if Texas is going to do what Oscar says they're going to do, undefeated, natty, they're going to need more than Kelvin Banks to be an All-American this year. Preseason AP All-American poll comes out. Kelvin Banks, first team, attaboy Kelvin. But, it's a reminder that there was only one Longhorn, Kelvin Banks, on the first team All-SEC preseason team that came out when we were in Dallas for the SEC Media Days. They're going to need like a half dozen guys. They don't all need to be unanimous. They don't all have to be consensus. They're going to need about 6 guys that make a major All-America team. If this team, that's about the national average last 10 years when you look at national championship teams. Well, I think the obvious names that everybody that follows Texas, everybody that's a fan of Texas, if you're putting 6 together, Anthony Hill's name is typically on that list. And there's been so much conversation about he's playing a new position. In this new position, is it going to rob him of some of the playmaking in a way that certainly the discussion at LSU, it has existed around Harold Perkins. And I was just thinking about it today, and I go, I don't know that we're framing the linebacker discussion with Anthony Hill correctly. He's a new starter there. We know that. We talk about that. But as he gets set to replace Jalen Ford in what I think the Texas coaches would tell you is the most important position on the Texas defense, Jalen Ford, really critical to everything that Texas was able to do a year ago. We know that he had the big All-America season a couple of years ago where he basically intercepted a pass every game. It felt like that he really had emerged as a playmaker in a way that we didn't see a year ago, and he didn't win the national honors the way that he had 2 seasons ago. I think there's a real chance that the single biggest upgrade that's going to be made on this Texas team at any position. And I think there are some positions on this team where they've downgraded. They don't have Xavier Worthy on this team. And I don't think they've got Jatavian Sanders. And I don't know that they've got Adonai Mitchell. We'll see what those receivers do. But I think there are some areas where they've gone backwards in terms of, I think those guys are like 9.5 level players. And I don't know if those other guys are quite that yet. But I think they may be upgrading significantly at the Mike linebacker. That in going from Jalen Ford to Anthony Hill, you haven't just maintained a level. What you've actually done is gone from having a guy, there are layers to this. If Jalen Ford had one more season of eligibility this year and was playing at Mike linebacker, he feels like a guy that would be third team All SEC, honorable mention All SEC. I personally, forgive me, I never quite viewed Jalen Ford as a great player. I think Anthony Hill might be a great player. So much so. And Chad, how about this? It's not a Monday hot take.
Okay.
It's a Tuesday hot take.
Truth Serum Tuesday.
I really believe that by the time we get to the end of the 2025 season, Anthony Hill will be in a tier with Derek Johnson and Tommy Novus. That when we start talking about the great linebackers in the history of the Texas football program, Anthony Hill's upside is that with back-to-back seasons that they're expecting from him, maybe he's not Tommy and DJ, but maybe he's the new number 3 on a list that it's always easy to give the top 2 guys. And then we start talking about, well, is it Britt Hager? Is it, you start going through the various names. Jalen Ford in that discussion. A Jordan Hicks will come up. You'll go into the 70s and find some guys as well.
Maybe Brian Jones? I don't know.
Anybody that's worn number 60 gets to be in the conversation, and he wore number 60.
Yeah, Thursday, 120, Brian Jones.
But maybe Anthony Hill ends up being the next superstar linebacker, best player on the defense, kind of the calling card player on that side of the ball. You get him for 2 more years, and maybe if he is the guy that everybody thinks, and everybody agrees he's hellacious. I had a source last week say he's the best player on this team. It's a team full of future NFL players. But I don't know that we fully have let it sink in when we talk about, can Texas win an SEC championship? When we talk about how good can this defense be after a year ago, it was just okay. I think adding a major upgrade at such a critical position hasn't fully been stressed enough, because people looked at Jalen Ford and said he was really good. So here comes Anthony Hill, and he'll be really good. So it's kind of the same, except it might not be. It might be that one guy was really good and another guy is great. And oftentimes the difference between great and really good is championship level stuff. That's how you win championships. You get guys who are legitimately great instead of very good.
I think the other thing that's going to be key, Catch, is the thought about Anthony Hill. First time I ever saw him on a field in the early, every time you'd see him, all I thought of was, man, attack a quarterback with that guy. Have that guy coming off the edge. Have that guy attacking. And I think there's been with the need for even more edge pressure, the thought was he had to help provide that, right? But now, if you can get both, if you can have him strengthen the middle, he's a badass middle linebacker. He's not just good, he's a badass. He doesn't get lost. Nobody says what, have those discussions like you were talking about with LSU and Perkins. And you get Moore, Sorrell, Burke, Vasek, who are the list of guys that are going to help on the edge. That's the ultimate, formula here. Because if there's no edge pressure coming, what Anthony Hill is in the middle is certainly important, but it won't be as important. It'll feel like you rob Peter to pay Paul in a way.
Except they've brought Johnny Nansen in to ensure that even though they're using him in that spot inside the Pete Kwiatkowski defense, that there's a real sense that he will be a more attacking, aggressive, upfield charging player than I think Jalen Ford was traditionally viewed as. It felt like Jalen Ford was the whoopee blanket on the Texas defense for the past couple of years. He plays in the middle. He oftentimes, on pass plays was not hard charging forward, trying to sack the quarterback. He was patrolling the middle of the field. Oftentimes, certainly 2 years ago, making lots of interceptions, but basically being a guy that cleaned up anything that needed to be cleaned up. I don't know if that's quite how Anthony Hill's going to be used. I think one of the more fascinating things about what we'll see in 11 days when Texas and Colorado State open up, and then certainly in 18 days when we get Texas and Michigan. And oh, by the way, 18 days until Texas and Michigan. Hey!
Yeah, that's the good news.
Sounds good.
Good news.
And look, to be fair, since it's house divided, 11 days till A&M and Notre Dame. And I'm really interested in that game. I don't know exactly what we're going to see, but given how much conversation there's been about Texas A&M and Texas playing each other again this season, watching each other play on the field, it takes on a completely different meaning. I can remember you and I doing the watch along for Miami last year. It's just different.
Oh yeah, they're not
at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's no collision course. You didn't feel a already planned collision course because we knew they weren't going to play in a postseason game. So yeah, that like the way Texas fans will watch the Notre Dame and A&M game, and the way A&M fans will watch Texas and Michigan, it's
appointment viewing. It has to be done.
You have to do it. Just like if I'm a, Clemson fan, I'm watching Florida State this weekend when they play in Dublin, Ireland, because there's a huge game coming, with my Clemson Tigers in that case and Florida State.
Back to that Texas opening game. Watching how Anthony Hill is used is one of the, for me, easily top 5 storylines going into that game. So we'll talk about, what does the running game look like with Jaden Blue without CJ Baxter? We'll talk about the receivers and who takes an early lead in that battle to become the go-to guys for Quinn Ewers. That if they're starting out with 6 or 7, but we think they'll eventually play with 3 or 4, who takes the first steps to be 3 and 4? The secondary, there are all of these little baby questions, the defensive tackles and the edge players. But how Anthony Hill is used, do we show up in 13 days from today? See what I did there? I took the 11 and I added the 2, and it's the Monday of House Divided. Write that down. 13 days. Gerard Hurd number of days away from the Monday after the opener. Are we talking about, is Anthony Hill one of the big talking points coming out of that game where it's, holy shit, that guy? Like, I thought he was good, but if he's going to be like that, Texas suddenly, everything starts to feel possible on defense. Even if you're looking at Colorado State and you always have that asterisk in the back of your mind where it's only Colorado State. Still, football's football. And if a guy flashes and a guy creates big plays and a guy makes a game-changing play, and he's that guy, then I think we're all going to show up in 13 days, and his name will be on the tip of our tongue every bit as much as anything that happens on offense.
And it would be a really good thing, Catch, if his name is on the tip of your tongue headed to the big house, like as you're talking about. That timing is perfect. If you feel good about him going into that game. Let's grab a chat or two here. Remember, if you get us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list, just like Oscar did at the beginning. SRone45, we need Alfred Collins to occupy blocks for him. SRone, absolutely. Absolutely. Nobody in the world ever taught me that lesson better than Brian Jones. Let's make sure to ask Brian about that on Thursday when we have him on the show. How important the D tackles are to a middle linebacker. Nobody knows better than Brian, and he can go into a little bit of that. But Catch, it's absolutely critical. Collins, Broughton, whoever it is, these other guys that Nansen is familiar with, Savea and Lole, that they're going to need to take up some issues in the middle and let Anthony Hill be Anthony Hill.
Yeah. And that's different than I think how we watched the Texas defense and thought about those defensive tackles a year ago. Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat were the playmakers. You weren't getting enough of those on the outside, and Jalen Ford regressed back to the mean a little bit from the level he was at as a junior, when, again, it felt like every week he was intercepting a pass. Last year, the big game-changing plays really subsided. He was a very good but not a great player, and the tackles were the great players. This year, you don't quite expect that from those guys, but if those tackles are able to keep bodies off of Hill, they don't need to make the plays. There are other players all over the defense, including Hill, the defensive ends, guys in the secondary. You would expect them to be much more involved in the playmaking part of this. So it's the Texas defense more than anything is going to be the thing about this team that looks the most different. Even if they're not an elite defense, even if they finish, let's say, exactly the same rankings, even in pass defense, let's say everything's exactly the same, which would not be a good thing. But if it was, I still think the defense looks different. How they would get to those statistics would look different because I think the edge rush is going to be much better. I also don't think we've completely wrapped our heads around the idea that Trey Moore, if he's the difference maker that I think people in the Texas program think he can be, suddenly you go from a defense, forget about everybody else. Forget about Barron Sorrell. Forget about Colton Vasek or Ethan Berg or Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill or whomever. If they've legitimately brought in a guy that's a double-digit sack guy, this defense didn't have anything remotely like that a year ago. So if Moore is anywhere close to being double-digit sack guy, and you've upgraded in the middle with Anthony Hill, those are two nuclear weapons you've added to your weapons arsenal on the defensive side of the ball. And those two things just make you different. They didn't have that a year ago. If they had, they probably play Michigan in the national championship game. I don't know what the hell I could say that would make me ever say they win the national championship and beat Michigan. I don't know. I can never quite go that far. But I can think of little tweaks that would have made them just a little bit better where they beat Washington in that game a year ago, and just having two mega new monster pieces on that defensive side of the ball, knowing that they couldn't get to Penix, they couldn't make plays, they really got pushed all over the field in that game a year ago. Difference makers change the dynamics in games like that. And where Texas didn't have them a year ago, they may have multiple. And as we get closer to the season, it's the defense that I keep thinking, if this team's going to win a championship, Chad, it may be the defense that leads the way there. And the offense is a supplemental piece, or maybe the defense is a supplemental piece. But maybe these things are much closer to a 50-50 type of relationship than I think we inherently think about with Texas football, where it's a whole lot of it feels like the offense is 75, 80% of the puzzle pieces. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. And I think that's the part about this team that enough people around the country don't quite get yet. I think Texas, they're preseason top 5. They're thinking about Quinn. They're thinking about Sark. They're thinking about an offensive line they expect to be really good. They know they've got all the receiving talent. I think it's always about that side of the ball. I think this team's going to be a much more evenly distributed quality in 2024.
If y'all want to throw a super chat in, please do so. It'll go to the top of the list thanks to 460 people who have already piled in. And that continues to happen as we get started. Real quick, let me hit you with a little AV consultations. Kickoff coming. Catch told you, it's 11 days away. If you got your plan set in your mind, you know what room you want the screen to go in. You know what size screen you want, but you don't have all the expertise to know what's the best stuff. How do I put it up there? Can I really put it on that wall? And what about the cord that's going to run down? Can we hide that so the kids don't bust everything up? All of that is a yes, and let AV Consultations take care of it. They know all the answers. 255-8678. They've been doing this since 1988. They can get that big screen you've always wanted. Maybe it's multiple screens, the incredible furniture that goes with it, the movie room that your family has always been talking about. Make it happen. Maybe it's a cool holiday gift this Christmas for your family. Get it taken care of with AV Consultations. 255-8678 or go to avconsultations.com. All right, Catch, somebody sent a, let me double check. I don't see a super chat, but I did see a chat with a little trivia question on it. You want to handle this one? Has a linebacker ever won the Heisman?
No.
That is a no. Salty, no true defensive player, no defensive-only player has ever won the Heisman. Woodson is the closest thing you've had, and he had to be a returner to get that done as well. The two closest, Salty, I believe, would be Hugh Green from Pitt, finished second in the Heisman, if I'm not mistaken. And then Manti Te'o, I guess, would be the last guy that was pretty close. I can't remember if Manti finished second or third to Manziel, but those are the two that pop in my head, Catch. But no true defensive player has ever won it.
Is there a defensive player, a linebacker specific, that you've ever watched and thought that guy was good enough? He should have been in the Heisman discussion. The way we do with Ndamukong Suh, I think, in that 2009 year, where we were like, that dude is awesome. Like, if they just did it to the best player, he'd get it.
I mean, in the right situation, in the right moment, I'm going to bring Quentin Coryatt's name up since I am an Aggie. But
is he that good?
Yeah, he was.
Okay,
he absolutely was. I think he was.
So long.
Yeah,
that I remember him killing the TCU kid, and I know that he was a number 2 pick in the NFL draft. But what he did from Saturday to Saturday's a distant memory in my brain.
My belief in the Heisman is that it should be a dog show. It should be, are you a better blank than that guy is a blank? And I think he was a better linebacker, arguably, than anybody was in anything else. Again, but you got to have you got to have the full team come together. The other one that jumped in my head when you said it, Catch, was Derek Brooks at Florida State. Like, was he good? Was he to that level where you'd go, you know what? If he throws the numbers out there, maybe that guy goes to New York and wins it.
It's funny that you would bring up Derek Brooks, because I was going to mention Ray Lewis.
There you go.
When Ray was at the U,
yeah,
and you were watching Miami play on Saturday nights, it was like, holy hell, Ray Lewis plays some football, man.
Might want to account for that guy.
And it just always felt like they were showing him on the sidelines after doing something badass. Derek Johnson would probably be in that group as well. You think about the year he would have been at his best, 2004. So he's got to beat out Matt Leinart for the award, and maybe that can't be done. But that guy forced like 8 fumbles his senior season. He created his own move, that chop strip fumble that
punch
created when he would be chasing from behind and then would come around and, force a fumble. He did it in the biggest games. He was such a great player, but there haven't been a ton of them. So
yeah. Here's a good name. Speaking of Derek Thomas. Yeah.
But wasn't Derek Thomas a better NFL player than he was a college player?
I mean, maybe, but I still think he was at the level. I think he's probably at a level to have that discussion. I'd have to go back and look at all
probably at least deserves to have. He was pretty incredible at Tech.
Yeah, he was.
Maybe not the best player in the country, but he was hellacious, man.
Yeah. Here's one. I can speak to this one at least in one bowl game catch. This dude was pretty good. LeVar Arrington at Penn State.
The thing that always Joe Paterno was convinced that his teammate Courtney Brown on the same defense was the better player.
Right.
So, I mean, Courtney Brown was a great player too. So it's not like, that guy was with the second or third pick in the draft. Arrington was a highlight reel. I feel bad for the under 30 crowd that never got to see LeVar Arrington do some of the silly jumping over the pile. Like, he did some pretty crazy athletic things as a linebacker at Penn State. And I think it drove Joe Paterno crazy, which all these years later makes me like LeVar Arrington as a player more.
And yes, and I believe it was also LeVar Arrington that did something to Troy Aikman that you and I will not discuss at this point.
But I've got one more for you.
Remember him for that.
The Boz.
Bosworth was that level. Yeah, you couldn't watch an Oklahoma game those years and not notice him. He should have been in that discussion. Yeah.
If it was him or Testaverde, if we were to go back and redo a couple of those, I might be okay, because I can remember being a kid and I didn't give a shit about Texas or Oklahoma because I was a Baylor fan.
Mm-hmm.
But like every kid knew who Brian Bosworth was. Every kid, he was a household name in ways that college football players aren't often household names in 2024. He was kind of the Johnny Manziel of the mid to late 80s. And, it's hard to describe how big of a deal it was when he went to the NFL and then Bo Jackson ran his ass over. Like,
right.
It was such a big deal that him having a bad play is a highlight 35 years later.
It's true. By the way, I think Bo Jackson was good enough to be considered. Oh, never mind. All right, Catch. So Matt throws in, I've heard people toss around the idea that there should be a defensive and offensive Heisman. I'd be all for this, Matt. All for it. I'm a defensive-minded foot fan anyway. Yes, that's the discussion we're having right now. Catch, LeVar Arrington and a group of dudes, just badass defensive dudes, should have gone to New York one year. Not just, you're keeping the Lombardis and the Nagurskis and the Butkuses and all that, but overall say, hey, Ndamukong Suh, you need to be there up for the defensive Heisman. I got no problem with that.
Nah. They do kind of have those now, but because they're newer awards, we just they don't have the street cred yet. They make these awards up. The Ronnie Lott Award feels like a fairly new award in college football, and I think they do that. I think that's what that award is, but
okay.
We don't go crazy. Sometimes you just can't make something important because you want to make it important. And I think that's what this is.
Yeah.
They need to literally call it the defensive Heisman in order for people to care.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right. Speaking of caring, Andrew cares enough to send a super chat, and it'll get us back to the Texas conversation. Thank you, Andrew. $9.99. I'm less worried about Ant being great, more worried about Quinn taking the next step of being good/average to being great. We need him to take that next step and become an absolute winner at all cost. Andrew, $10, turning it back around to the quarterback.
It is the tide that lifts all boats. If you can be great at quarterback, you can have a lot of sins at that point. Look at Washington a year ago. And that ends up being a really talented Washington team that had a bunch of guys drafted. But if we go back and think about that Texas-Washington game and how it was played, Washington won that game because Michael Penix Jr. showed up on that night and said, I'm the guy walking around with the words bad mother, you know what, on my wallet. And no matter how good your DBs played or not, I'm playing pitch and catch with my receivers, and we're going to win tonight. And now Texas almost overcame that. But ultimately, that was the Michael Penix game. And you can't have that kind of game until you take that kind of step, I think. And it's what we're waiting on from Quinn. Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was going to say that is fair to say, but I think I could also turn the argument around, Catch, back to defense. Because if Quinn has an incredible year and maybe even gets into a Heisman discussion, and I don't know, maybe even wins the thing, his team still doesn't necessarily win it all. Just ask the people in Baton Rouge. Texas was not good enough to get to the national championship. I would argue in a big way because their defense wasn't good enough. That's what we're talking about today, right? They gave up that drive in Dallas that I will not recount because it'll make me and everybody watching vomit. They were not able to deal with Penix and those receivers in big moments when it mattered. Catch, the most important thing, maybe about everything else about entering the SEC, is this element. Name the last national champion that you think had a below average defense. Like, who are they? Who won the Natty with a defense that was suspect? Who did it all with offense?
I mean, how far back are we going? I can't.
Yeah, think of the Bama teams with Saban that coach. Think of the smart teams at Georgia. Those Clemson teams with those dogs up front on the defensive line and badass corners. It's just got to be an element. Andrew is not wrong. Of course he's wrong. I mean, of course he's right about that. Yes, Quinn
Florida
has to take
State
that
with Winston, but like they weren't a one-sided team.
Yeah, no, and that was a grinded out. Think about that team though. They didn't win that championship game 45-40.
Yeah.
They had to grind it out.
LSU?
The LSU team, but they had Chase on. They had
they're incompetent on defense, but their offense was so otherworldly. They actually weren't great on defense.
They may not. Maybe that's it. But I mean, I think Chason's on that team.
Survives.
And Perkins was a freshman, I think, on that team. But not Perkins. What's his name? Stingley was, I think, a freshman on that team. So maybe that's why.
Looking, they probably had 7 NFL starters.
I mean, I'm telling you, you gotta have big dogs on D. Andrew, thank you for that super chat. But it is a great point. It's the thing we're gonna watch above everything else. You are watching for Quinn to take that step, but this step that we're talking about today, Catch, if you can get both of those things as a Texas football fan, I mean, get your popcorn ready. If I could sign you up right now for number 3 takes a big step and Johnny Nansen and Zero have a plan and it's gonna work. If you don't know anything else about 2024, you sign up and then just get ready because that would be huge.
It's almost tough to even fathom because I don't know that I've ever seen that at Texas. You know, when I go back and think of, let's think about the best Texas teams in history. I mean, last year's has to be in the discussion because they made a national semifinal. I don't know. There were more offense than defense. The defense was just okay. Really good against the run, but ultimately kind of its Achilles heel. 2009, they were great on defense. And they were just okay on offense. You know, the 2008 team was kind of the opposite. They were great on offense, and they weren't great on defense. Earl Thomas was still like a year away from just being a complete dominating presence. They gave up, it just wasn't the strength of that team.
Yeah, good
The 05 team scored 50 points a game, so they didn't need to be great on. They had a good defense.
Yeah, this is Colby giving us the number 31st in defense. There you go, 31st in total defense. That's not a bad defense, not elite. But that's not bad.
That this year if you were Texas.
Yeah, you would. I would have guessed that, Catch. If you said, what do you need to be? I would say at the absolute, you got to be top 50. I would say that's
top
a must.
30, and I grandfather LSU in, right? Because it's so close. But like in my mind, because you're a top 30 defense, you're in the top quarter of defenses across the sport.
Yeah. God, look at this number. That tells you how great that offense was. Their defense was giving 344 a game.
Well, look, when you have arguably the greatest college football offense of all time, teams usually end up getting a lot of yards. That's usually part of what goes with having a great. The thing is, in college football, it's really hard to be great on both sides of the ball, because if you're legitimately great on one side of the ball, it makes, when you practice, it's hard for those things to be even. There's always an edge on the greater side, and the impact of that is it makes it hard for that. You can't be great. There's this idea that, well, the toughest competition they play all season long is what they see in practice. Okay, but it's hard to be great on Saturdays if you're not great consistently Monday through Friday. That there's usually carryover. It's like, oh, thank God the games arrived. Now we can finally be great. That's nothing that anybody has ever said. Usually greatness is great every day. So it's really hard for there to be this both sides equally great college football team. It sounds good in theory. I suppose Georgia, the thing is, you could go back and look at some of those Georgia teams. They were probably more great collectively, but we don't look back on those teams and say that Georgia offense will go down in history as one of the greats of all time. We probably do it a little bit more with Kirby's defense. We probably do, some of those Alabama teams, I think we think more about the offense because of the quarterback play and the receivers they had. And you think about the walk-off touchdown with Devontae Smith, and there are things that we remember that are a little bit different. It's interesting, though, that we think about this Texas team right now so far, first 3 weeks of camp, a lot more talk about the defense than the offense. And we think the offense is going to be really good, but we know this, the defense has been mostly controlling practices. Is that going to reveal itself when the games come out? That all year long, we've probably been talking about the wrong side of the ball too much.
Yeah. By the way, bravo to Brad who looked that up. Brad was throwing out the idea earlier that maybe the 05 Texas team was a team you could think of as just badass offense, but the defense wasn't. And then he went ahead and looked it up. Thank you, Brad. I retract the 05 Texas, number 9 in team defense. My memory's blocked from VY playing video games that year. Brad, it is the most important factor to me when you're factoring in just how good that entire team was, because any notion that number 10 was doing everything on his own is just silly. You weren't watching those games. They did
average 50 points a game.
I get it, but go look at what the other teams were averaging. Go look at what the other teams were doing. That defense was nasty good that year.
In that Ohio State game when Ohio State in 05 threatened to run away in that game. It was big plays by the defense. The Cedric Griffin hit on, what was it, Ben Hartsock in the end zone. I think that was the tight end's name.
And catch it. I think you're absolutely right. And you're going to need to win those games. It's a perfect game to bring up because think about the conference Texas is going into. I pulled up the 19 LSU. Here are their close games. We know it was close in Austin, 45-38. That LSU team had to beat Auburn by 3, 23-20. They had to beat Bama in Tuscaloosa by 5. Now, that was high scoring, 46-41. Speaking of having offense when you need it and maybe defense when you need it the week before. And then everything else was blowouts, including beating Oklahoma 63-28. That's just for you Texas fans. But that's what you got to do. And you're to your point, that Ohio State game is one of those. And Texas is going to have one of those this year. Hell, last year they had some. We've talked about the close games. You're not going to win every game by 4 or 5 touchdowns. You're going to need to have that balance. And hopefully for Texas fans watching this team, there's going to be those weeks, Catch, where what we're talking about today steps forward, where Anthony Hill and a badass defense step forward. Like, I don't know, maybe, week 2, for just a random number to pick out. Maybe week 2, when you're facing a team that's going to try to run right in your face.
We'll find out really quickly because Michigan's going to try to mash. I'm going to steal one from my great grandmother, but Michigan's going to try to mash Texas's mouth. And we walk out of that, Michigan wins that game. We'll show up after the game is over with a couple of days to reflect on it. And I'm sure the conversation will sound like, well, they just beat Texas up physically. That in the end, by the fourth quarter, they couldn't stop the run. Michigan was getting what they wanted to. And, they just jab. And by the end of the fourth quarter, the face of the Texas defense is all puffy from just eating punches all night. Or we show up and we go, oh, man, like Texas has what that 05 defense had, right? Maybe it's not elite of the elite all time. I was going to ask you this about that number 9 ranking. What makes a defense great? What do they have to be? Was that a great Texas defense? Or if you're one of the 9th best defenses in the country, that's very good, but it's not elite. Like what would we say about that 05 defense? Tons of pros, but they weren't dominant. That's not what they were. They weren't dominant against USC. They weren't dominant against A&M. They weren't dominant against Ohio State. They were dominant against Oklahoma. But, you go back and think about some of the other games. Oklahoma State, they weren't dominant in that game. What would we call that? What's the bar?
It's a great question. I think it's about
because I don't want Texas to have the number 9 defense in the country this year, and then we not have this conversation in advance, and then we're like, well, they're very good, but they're not. I want us to identify what the hell's great so that we can apply those measuring sticks against actual teams this year.
And first of all, you would agree that would you call the 05 defense great?
No.
Okay. So
very, very good.
Okay. So when obviously they had those overall numbers, I think maybe to get them to great in your mind, the Ohio State game is a big part of it. I think that helps the great argument. But to your point, they would have needed to maybe.
Well, hold on. Let me say this. The thing about that Ohio State game, if you say the quiet thing out loud about that game, if Troy Smith plays that whole game, I think Ohio State might win. Ohio State played the wrong quarterback that week. And that's evidenced by the fact they started playing Troy Smith the whole game after the Texas game, and Ohio State ran the table and was the 3rd best team in college football that year. The next year, Troy Smith wins the Heisman. If Troy Smith plays in the Ohio State game all 60 minutes, do I automatically think it doesn't change because Texas was so great on defense that it didn't matter that Troy Smith didn't play the full 60 minutes? And I don't feel that way. I don't feel like, oh, it's okay. They could have played whoever, and that defense would have done what was needed to win the game.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I feel that way.
Okay. I think it's fair. I think it's then ultimately what we're probably saying, it's the combination of you got to have the stats, but then you also have to have domination. You have to have domination through most of it. You're going to have some close games, but you need to have some domination. So if that team had beaten USC by 10 or more, if they'd really taken it to A&M that year. I mean, really gone after.
That's not what happened in that game.
Right. That was a weird little clunky game. I think it finished with an 11-point margin, but it just felt a little sleepy from Texas. And that was in College Station.
The Texas offense started that game slow, and it required the Texas offense to really heat up and catch its stride. It wasn't like the defense said, don't worry about this. We got it. That's not what happened. A&M started putting points on the board, and it required the Texas offense to wake the hell up and kind of play from behind to win that day. That's the game that might have cost Vince the Heisman. And, but what was the final? What did they score in that game? They were in the 40s, right?
Which game?
That A&M game in 05.
My guess was 40-29.
Let me look that
something
up.
like that. That's my guess. 40-29 was the for some reason was in my head.
By the way, when I ask you a buy or sell question later involving Brian Bosworth, by the way, it's 40-29.
Boom.
Nice
Why am I proud of remembering that live? I don't know.
Remember that game you guys lost by 11. Well done.
Hey, I remember the number. I remember it. I was doing what no other Aggie on earth would have wanted to been doing at the same time. I was calling a Texas women's basketball game in Hawaii while that was happening.
Well done. Yeah. Look, it was borderline great 05. Borderline, but it wasn't
borderline. Great. Okay. All right. Somebody else sent us, where was the one I liked? Somebody sent another interesting stat of a defense catch, and it's a good one to bring up. It was that Auburn defense in 2010. And I think they said it was 60 in the country. There it is. The Cam Newton team, 60th. Gave up 360.
That's a weird year because it was a bad year in college football.
Gave up 368 per game.
They played Oregon in the national championship game, and Cam Newton played like doo-doo.
And is it also,
and they still won the game.
Is it also fair to point out that was before Nick Saban really got his claws into everything and really got going?
Well, clearly.
Right?
Alabama had won the year before, but the machine wasn't completely built yet.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the full power Saban. Not trying to dog that Auburn team. They obviously deserved a national title, but
ultimately people will make the case. Yeah, people will say that Auburn was elite on offense. Cam Newton, for people who have forgotten just how freaky good Vince Young was, there are people in the SEC who will say that Cam Newton is the best player in the history of the SEC. I know that's crazy talk, but there are people that say he was that good in 2010. He just wasn't that good in the national championship game. But there's no question that he was out of this world good all season long up until the national championship game.
Yep, that is fair. Thanks to Michael for reminding everybody. Hit that like button, y'all. It's free and it helps our two bald buddies. Yes, it does. We thought about calling the show Bald Buddies, but we decided against it at the last minute. Let's thank everybody. 5:30 or so is what I'm seeing in the Specs chat. Here's Lisa to remind you about Specs. Get all stocked up for the weekend.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Hell, you got a game to get ready for on Saturday. Florida State, Georgia Tech from Dublin is the 11 a.m. kick on ESPN with DJ Uiagalelei with the Florida State hat on. Catch, half my year watching college football is going to be where the hell are all these quarterbacks? Like they've all transferred to different.
Who? What? When? Where? How'd that happen?
Yeah, you and I did not grow up with a lot of that, where a Clemson quarterback just becomes a Florida State quarterback, just, thin air.
They had their break year in between when it was at Oregon State.
That's right. That's all you have to do. You have to go out west and cleanse your soul, and then you get to come back. All right, I don't see any super chats right now. Catch, here's just a random question real quick. Updated thought. More difficult game, OU or A&M?
I've said all along, it's A&M. OU is the better team. The more difficult game will be A&M and College Station.
Going to be a lot of water under that bridge.
And Vegas agrees, by the way, right now. They've got, I think Texas is an 8.5-point favorite right now against Oklahoma, and they're a 4.5-point favorite in College Station.
Vegas agrees with you.
Yes.
Yeah. A little bit of a tougher game, yeah. By the way, this week we'll hit 100 days until House Divided comes back together. Thursday will be 100 days until that game kicks, assuming they don't move it. Also to the game you mentioned earlier, somebody said, can't wait to watch Notre Dame kick Aggie's ass. That is from Blake. And then the other side of it, Nate says, Notre Dame is most frequently an overrated team. Nate, it will be something to watch. I think winner and loser in that game will get way overcooked and way undercooked. So we'll see. We will see which way it is, which one of those teams comes out of it looking good. Matt agrees with Catch that A&M at Kyle Field is going to be a madhouse. Vivek says, I think A&M has more talent than OU. If Wigman stays on the field, they will be a problem. All right. If you want to shoot us a super chat, feel free to do it. We got all those cleaned off. Catch, in terms of this Anthony Hill discussion, anything else you want to hit there, or do you want to transition to something else, or buy or sell?
I want to transition to something else. And I'm pulling up what I want to put on the screen that's going to allow us to do that.
All right.
So I want to take everybody into a discussion about NIL briefly.
Okay.
And we'll dive deeper into this, I think, maybe the next week or two. It may lead to us. Who knows? I'm efforting us getting Silas Bolden on the show live.
Okay.
And you may be saying to yourself, well, how can you do that? Because he's under the media thumb of the Sports Information Office, except when these guys do NIL deals. It becomes, and I'm doing the thing. I'm almost at a point where I can show this.
You're vamping is what you're doing right now. There's vamping going on.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Don't be sorry.
I don't know if I'm vamping. I don't. That's not necessarily. I'm killing time until I can load this freaking thing into the admin. And I hope I just did the right thing.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
I didn't.
It's going to happen.
And it turns out I have more than one thing called Silas saved on my computer, which is alarming.
That is tough.
Okay. I've done it now. Okay.
Okay.
So look, I want to paint the scene for you.
Okay.
It's the second weekend in September, or I guess it's the first weekend in September. Texas, Michigan.
Okay.
It's a 21-17 Michigan lead with 35 seconds left in the game.
Okay.
Longhorns have the ball on the Michigan 35-yard line.
Okay.
Quinn Ewers drops back to pass. He's feeling pressure. He flushes right. He lifts the ball up into the air into the back of the end zone. And Silas Bolden catches the ball back in the end zone in the big house. Longhorns win 24-21, 24-21. Longhorns 2-0, undefeated, leaving the big house. And Longhorn fans everywhere are saying to themselves, God, I love Silas Bolden. Do you know right now, if I could, I would give Silas Bolden $100. I'm so happy. Well, it turns out in the year of 2024, with the way that NIL is set up, you can do that. Now, I'm sorry that this is popping up like this, okay?
Okay.
This is a screenshot of a website called booster.club. You see that guy up there in the top left-hand corner?
Mm-hmm.
Silas Bolden. He has become a partner with booster.club.
Okay.
And it is a website for athletes where fans can directly connect with their favorite athletes and give them NIL money.
Wow. Just straight up giving them money.
Straight up. Imagine being at the big house. You've got your cell phone and you tell yourself, you know what? I saw that Silas Bolden booster page. If he scores a game-winning touchdown on Saturday, I will give him $1,000.
Dude, that's incredible.
You can literally go to this website, you log in as a booster, and you just give him $1,000.
Wow. I mean, I hate to keep going to the same analogy, Catch, but I'll give you two of them. Like, how is that different from you go to see your favorite piano bar piano guy and he kills Bohemian Rhapsody and you go, man, I'm throwing 20 in the snifter for that one. How is that different than somebody's watching the show and says, man, I just love Catch. I just love that. It was a great breakdown. It was good. I thought the guys are funny today. $50. Super chat. What's the difference?
There's not.
There you go.
And what this company that he's partnered up with has done is cut out the middleman. You know, if you were like, well, I want to immediately give to the Texas One Fund and I hope Silas Bolden gets some of that money, you don't know if he does or doesn't. And with this particular enterprise, it goes straight to him. And I'm curious to see how Silas Bolden promotes that during the year.
Yeah, I was going to.
It's not a lot different than having a QR code on your helmet.
Right. And that's what Oklahoma State, I don't know if they're the only one. I saw that idea has been thrown out. A code that you can scan. I'm not sure what that means, though. So I have to freeze my TV? Is that what I do if I'm in Stillwater? I just freeze the TV, hit the QR code?
It depends. Sometimes those QR codes are real tricky, and sometimes, yeah, it does need something to be like, I don't know.
Because that one,
there's a way.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That one goes to the general fund.
I don't know.
I believe, from what I'm reading about the Oklahoma State idea, that is if you scan the quarterback's code or the offensive line or the kicker, it all goes to one pile. This is Silas Bolden on behalf of Silas Bolden. The question I would have is, Catch, on a wristband, could he write whatever the thing is you have to go to on that app? Could he just, and then stick it up in the screen when he scores that touchdown you're talking about?
Why not?
Could he just do that? Never know.
I'm going to put this back up on the screen again. The thing that's really unique about this is if you look, that there's a Butler Bulldog swimmer. There's an Alabama cheerleader. I hadn't considered the notion of cheerleaders being athletes, but I'll be honest. I have gone to games before where I have seen cheerleaders and I've thought, oh man, I'll give her $20.
I mean, that's it's such a weird thing because it sends, you end up heading down kind of a smutty road right away. But I mean, who hasn't gone to a game? I don't care who you are and what you like. Who hasn't gone to a game and thought, okay, that's the prettiest cheerleader. That's the coolest cheerleader. That's the whatever. And what is the harm in saying, well, she's busting her ass out here and she's the one they just threw up in the air, or she's the one that's doing this or that. Man, I'm gonna go on the app and give her $10.
No doubt.
Like, what's wrong with and then as she walks out, Catch, when she's done with a long day out in the hot ass sun, right? She's packing up all her stuff. She's going back. She's got homework to do. She might have tweaked an ankle. She looks on that app and's like, oh my God, I made $80 today. I made $150 today. I made $200 today. That's awesome.
So I saw a little bit more about this yesterday. I learned a little bit more about it yesterday. I'm hoping that we can get Silas on to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Because I almost don't even want to ask him about football. I do, right? But if the only way we could talk to Silas was to get him on for 10 or 15 minutes to talk about how this works, I'm really fascinated by it. And look, he's not the only Longhorn athlete that has signed up for this that I'm aware of. I think it's a handful. I want to say a total of 7 Longhorn athletes are on booster as of today. I think Silas is the only football player. But I think that, there's a softball player and there's a volleyball player. And there's by the way,
is Brad Wright, was the bottom left girl the mascot of the team? Because I thought she was holding like a mascot head.
Let me see. What does it say on the picture itself? It says, I think so. It says Youngstown State Penguins.
Right.
And it doesn't finish because there's too many words.
It doesn't officially say she's the mascot, but she appears to be holding the mascot head, although she has a number on, but that could just be the year 2024. So
I tell you what, let me go. Here's what may have to happen. Let me go because I want to know now. Let me click on her page and see what it says.
Okay.
She's volleyball.
Oh, she's volleyball. Okay. All right. There you go.
It says, because it says on her page, hello, follow along my booster page to find out what life is like as a D1 volleyball player. I'm excited to connect with y'all. Go Gwens, because they're penguins.
Penguins. Go Gwen.
And on her page, there's an $8 monthly subscription, a $25 yearly subscription, and then there's a subscribe for free for 3 days. And it looks like, honestly, it's a little OnlyFan-ish without the smut.
Well, that should be the whole world. OnlyFans without the smut, right?
Well, think about it. Well, like, how do you get people to give you money? OnlyFans has figured that out. And sometimes it's in the form of, like, I told you, I had a friend who did videos where she cooked fried chicken naked.
Right.
And people paid money to watch her cook fried chicken naked.
Yeah.
I actually regrettably didn't pay money to see that. I think I would pay anybody one time. Like, Chad, I'd give you $20 if you have. I'm not saying that's what I want to see, but if you were hustling some fried chicken naked business, I'd give you $20.
And that's what creates this idea. Because
yes.
When you're in the stands and you're drunk at a football game, you're gonna like if the cheerleader idea seems crazy to people, it shouldn't. Because again, the mascot, I guarantee you, Catch, a mascot should be a part of this. Because some mascots get legendary status. You're a Phillies fan. I don't need to explain to you.
I would definitely tip the Philly fanatic.
Right, exactly. If you could, you know what happens after the famous gorilla, the Phoenix Suns, gets done doing what he does or she does? They pay them. They pay the person that's in that outfit. That's what happens. That's not just a goodness.
When the gorilla comes down from the ceiling on a like a zip line, they actually give that guy money.
It's famous stuff now. And if Hook'em is that good, and you want to give Hook'em a little love, you can give. You know what they ought to do, Catch? They ought to put every real live mascot in an app like that so you can donate to, like, the fund that takes care of Bevo if you want to.
Hey,
Shout out to Ricky and the crew who take care of Bevo. They'd love that. Little extra money, help them out, help with the trailer fee, help with the cleanup fee. Come on.
Chad, I know we're in the middle of a good little thing. The strangest thing has just happened.
Wow. You and I have known each other a long time. There's been a lot of strange. What's the strangest thing?
My mom just knocked on the windows of my office.
All right, that is the strangest thing. You did not lie. Wow.
So
what does that mean?
Well, apparently she doesn't know that I'm doing a show that I do every day. I promise you, when I tell her, Mom, you've interrupted a show and you need to apologize to Chad.
She has no idea.
She's completely oblivious to that.
No idea.
But like I don't know. Chad, I've never had my mom knock on my office window before. So
how about, do you need like me to vamp a little bit and you go talk to your mom? Like,
I need you to quit using the word vamp.
Okay. Do you need me to pay a bill and then you go talk to your mom?
Pay a bill. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be back and we'll do buy or sell.
Okay. Let's do that. I will talk about a little sinus and snoring specialist, and Catch is going to talk to his mom. I can't believe that's a real sentence that just came out of my mouth. But speaking of mouth or nose or the two working together, sinus and snoring specialist can make sure that you're feeling good, that you're resting good, you're sleeping well. If you have allergy issues, sinus headaches, sinus infections all the time. I used to get 2 bouts of allergies a year, at least. I was a mountain cedar guy from age 5. That's what they told me. Mountain cedar. At Sinus and Snoring Specialist, they were able to double check that and test me for 50 different allergies at once. They found out, hey, guess what, Chad? They were right. Mountain cedar. But also, I told them that my head would just stop up if I was around a real Christmas tree. So they put in pine, and then for the area I'm in, there's some ragweed. And they can also put certain things in there, certain molds and stuff that are in your particular area that they know bother people. And it helps you develop those defenses. Over a 3-year period with the allergy drops, your body builds up the defenses and you're not having to deal with it. They get rid of your allergies for good, not to mention all the stuff that I've told you about with snoring, sleep apnea, and all that stuff. They'll take care of all of it. Get on in there. You'll meet Dr. Slaughter in the first consultation, and you will not regret it. I certainly haven't regretted it since 2017. Sinus and snoring specialist. They're right there at Palmer and Mopac. It is sinussnoringent.com, or just call them at 601-0303. Sinus and snoring specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. Let's see if I gave Catch enough time. I think I did. How's mom?
Good, I guess.
Okay. Everything's good?
Yeah, she needed some cash.
Needed. Whoa. All right. There you go.
Bank was open for business. And Ketchum Bank made a cash withdrawal.
Dude, can I get some of that if I come to the Woodlands and knock on a window?
I mean, look.
Is that how it works?
It's the new trend, Chad.
Damn, I'm going to try it. Tell your mom I'm going to boom, 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 boom.
Well, it's funny that she tried to like leave. And I was like, hey, mom, I'm in the middle of a show. Oh, well, never mind. Well, no.
Never mind. I'm good. I'm going to go knock on your neighbor's window.
You've done the thing that disturbed. Like, now let's just deal with what needs to be dealt with.
And to be fair, back to our other discussion, Silas Bolden and all these athletes now do not have to go knocking on windows. They just do what they do. And if you want to pay them, you pay them. Silas,
does it feel good that you don't have to go knock on strangers' windows anymore for cash? No. It feels fantastic because now when I score touchdowns, I go to the sidelines, I pick up my iPhone, and I get alerts, and I see. That's what I want to find out.
Yeah.
Well, when did you get your first deposit? Like, how did it happen? Yeah. And did you get are you at dinner and you look down at your phone and there's a running counter?
But here's the other thing, Catch. If you're telling me it's a social media connection, that means because like the athlete, you read the thing from the volleyball player. She said, like, I can't wait to connect with you guys, show you what it's like to be an athlete. So the other thing you're theoretically paying Silas Bolden for is access, right?
Yes.
He might get you. Now, this is where you got to be careful. You can't be like Antonio Brown with Mike Tomlin back in the day. Can't be videoing, speeches before the game and stuff. But Silas Bolden will be able to show people what it's like going to class. Here's what my schedule is every day. I'm lifting weights now. I'm doing this. And they're going to find out something about him that makes you connect with him and go, oh, man, Silas seems like a good dude. $5. That's cool. I like it. All right.
I don't know that it's active yet because I'm looking at it.
Okay.
I don't see any likes or hearts or anything yet.
Do you think
maybe that he's the announcement is pending?
Maybe the game has to kick off.
I don't know. But be on the lookout for this because whereas the other, like, he hasn't made any posts, but I clicked on the post of the Penguin volleyball player and she's made a post.
Man, oh man. On the base level, I love it. On every other level, I'm just thinking of how it could be made wrong. I'm thinking of how it could be it could be made wrong from the fans' perspective, the player's perspective, what a coach might think of it. Like if a coach runs into a situation and he's told, oh, well, he was just doing that for his booster account. Like an old school football coach is going to lose his mind on that one. But it's kind of where we are. By the way, Catch, real quick, we mentioned the Oklahoma State thing in terms of the QR codes. Did you see that story about Mike Gundy saying that negotiation time is over for his players?
I think it's a hell of a thing for a guy making $8 million to say.
He told them we can open the door again in December, but right now, no more negotiating. Tell your agent to stop calling us.
The thing is, that's not how it has to work.
No.
Like these guys can the portal might not. Is that really? That feels like a very standoffish way to approach dealing with your workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Chad, football season started. Don't you bring up money to me. Talk to me in January when what? No, like we're human beings. We're adults. We don't live in a world where I have to wait 5 months to address my financial viability improving? Like, what are we doing?
To be fair, Dabo gave him the idea, so that might explain it.
It's like, hey, coach, how about you not take a check until December? Maybe you get paid when the portal opens up. How's that sound?
Oh, my goodness. All right, Catch, you ready to buy or sell on this Tuesday?
I am. For the second consecutive day, I have all 5 questions in the system.
Wow, that's not just that's what do they say? 2's a trend?
Hey,
Three's a
considering
pattern?
last week I got none in, and that was a trend. So we're 2 for 2.
I like it.
I'm ready to go first.
All right, hit it.
And that includes a prime on prime hotter than.
I do love that.
I want to openly admit as I ask it, I don't know what my answer is.
Okay.
So no, this will be one where I may, you know how sometimes you give me an answer and then I tell you it's wrong?
Yes.
And then I tell you why I think your answer that I asked for actually doesn't matter and only my opinion matters. You know when I do that to you?
Of course. That's kind of why we invented buy or sell.
Ways for me to get off even more takes. This may be one where I shut my mouth and listen to see if you have the right recipe for what the correct answer is. Because for the first time ever, I think I've created a buy or sell that I'm unsure of.
Fair enough. All right. I can't wait.
Buy or sell number 1. Anthony Hill will be Texas's number 3 all-time linebacker at Texas by the end of the 2025 season.
That feels like a buy. Yeah, by end of 2025, like you mentioned, the 2 big guys earlier, Novus and there's TJ. There's obviously Brian and a lot of other guys in the discussion. But yes, I'll say Anthony Hill will even be thought of higher than a Brian Jones level into 2025. Bye.
Is there an A&M player on the roster that you feel that way about at any position?
At any position to be like number 3 all time?
Yeah. One of the school's best players at their position ever.
One of the school's best players at the position ever.
And then if the answer to that is yes, then you can ask yourself, do they climb that high?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of – it's probably one of the D tackles. Is it maybe – what's the cat's name? Hicks, right? Is that his name? Maybe, but you're climbing a big ladder there to get up to number 3 all time at A&M. So no, now my head would tell me no.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Buy or sell number 2. Colt McCoy will be a quality college football analyst.
100% buy. Colt is one of those guys that initially you want to think, oh, he might be a little awkward or he might be a little nervous. Colt is a hardworking dude. We watched him and Jordan do those commercials for the boot companies and different things like that. The stuff he did for LHN. I think Colt's going to learn. He's going to become more and more natural. That smile's going to get more and more magical to people. I think he's going to be really good at this. And as long as he can communicate that football info, which I believe he can, I think he's going to be really good, Catch. I'm buying.
All right, good. Interesting. Maybe your answer is best. I'm a little unsure. I wonder how stiff he might be.
Here's who I think of. I think he's got a chance to be like a Matt Hasselbeck type where you're thinking to yourself, that's not the most dynamic guy in the world, but damn it, he knows football. I think that's who Colt's going to be.
Okay. I'm curious. I really don't know. The thing is, I can remember, oh God, why am I drawing a blank? Big defensive lineman that A&M's. Oh, Sam Adams. Was it Sam Adams? No. Somebody else I'm thinking of. I can't remember who it is. But I remember they were in a class of 99, I'm sure, or 98. I could look it up and find it pretty quick. Oh,
Ty Warren.
Ty Warren. Thank you, Chad.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching Ty Warren do an interview as a high school senior.
Okay.
This is going to sound really rude, but I need to paint the perfect picture of just what I'm talking about. I came away from that interview not knowing whether or not Ty Warren could read or write. that the interview was so bad that it was like, I don't know how good, I don't know how that guy survives in college. I have no idea what his learning level is. That guy comes out of the NFL, and Ty Warren was like incredibly gifted as an orator, that he was all these years later had gone from precocious kid who wasn't ready to be on camera to, by the end of his NFL career, being a guy that could be a TV analyst. And it was like, holy crap. It was a real good learning experience for me to think, no matter what you ever think of a kid when they're 17 or 18, not anything, they can always come out the other side from 17, 18 and being light years different in all the good ways. And I wonder that about Colt. It's been, since covering him in college, it's been a while. He's had a decade and a half to evolve as a personality and as a football talking analyst. And I can't wait. I'm fascinated to hear what it sounds like, because
and he's also been fully trained on how do you communicate with the media when you're the backup in the NFL? How do you communicate with them when you're asked to be the starter in the NFL? Like, he's gotten through, there's a lot of things he's had to deal with.
I do want, we're getting ready to see Tom Brady do this. We're getting ready to see a lot of quarterback. Drew Brees can't do it. Drew's not good. And NBC, they keep trying to put Drew. Now, maybe Drew will get good, but that's an example of a guy that I think a lot of people have thought would naturally cross over and he would be great on TV, and it hasn't happened yet. I'm fascinated to see how well Colt adapts, because, I have some preconceived notions that I wonder end up being completely wrong.
Yeah, I believe in him. Good, get it done, Colt. Colt's
All right,
on.
Are you ready for my Brian Bosworth buy or sell?
I definitely am. Real quick, Colt is on Big Ten games. Is that right? Is it Big Ten Network? Or is it, am I have that wrong?
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah,
He's doing a Nebraska game, this first game.
There you go.
Because Nebraska fans went on tilt. Why is he doing our game?
Yeah, because
is this some kind of cruel joke?
No, he's just starting out, and that's where you are right now, Nebraska.
Like having Martellus Bennett's brother call a Texas game. You enjoyed that a little too much, Chad.
Yeah.
Buy or sell number 3. 90% of the people that see the Dr. Pepper Fansville spots on television don't know who Brian Bosworth is.
I'm going to sell. That's 9 out of every 10. I'm going to assume there's more college football knowledgeable people. He was such a big deal. He crossed over back then to where I think people understand who that is. So I'm going to say it's not quite 9 out of 10. I'll sell.
How long has it been since the Boz made a play in a game?
Oh, that's been a long time. I get that. I get that part. I think I'm just trying to I'm going to give the fans enough credit that they know enough. And then things have been passed down through the years,
You'd have to be at least 40 years old to have to know who he was as a player. So
that's the other thing. What percentage of the people that are watching are 40 or older?
I don't know.
It's a really high percentage, I would assume, right? That's a high percentage of people watching.
I don't know. I mean, he's in the commercial for a reason, but I remember the first time I saw him in that spot, I didn't recognize him as the Boz. I was like, who's that Kenny Rogers looking motherfucker? And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, that's Bosworth.
Yeah.
I'm serious. And look, I know who Brian Bosworth is, but he doesn't exactly, he's not wearing the headbands, the hairs, you know what I mean? Like, he's so old now that I'm like, God, what movie do I know him from? And as it turns out, it's the Boz. Anyway, look, you're probably right, but I had to ask the question.
Yeah, somebody pointed out he did have a 30 for 30. Maybe the kids have watched that one. Yeah, you're talking me towards buying, but I'm still going to sell. I hear that about ESPN's 30 for 30 demographics, that the kiddos are big into those. If they're not listening to that Travis Scott, they're watching 30 for 30s. Sorry, go ahead.
Byers, I'm so proud that you know who Travis Scott is.
Thank you.
I mean, you know that you and I aren't that old yet.
Yeah. See, I could have said Jay-Z, but I didn't. I didn't say Jay-Z. I went a little newer.
Yeah, you didn't even say like Drake.
No, right? I didn't.
You didn't play the biggest hit. You went, like I said, I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
buy or sell number 4. Texas will have $1 million athletic director. Well, that should be general manager for football. I wrote the question wrong. Texas will have $1 million football GM within 3 years. We haven't gotten into the story yet, and who knows, maybe we don't get knee deep into it today, but Alabama's general manager is signing a new deal that's going to pay him roughly $800,000 a year.
Yeah. Right now, CDC's watching the show thinking, am I getting a pay cut? What's happening? All right. Texas will have $1 million GM within 3 years. I would think that's a buy. As we get into this discussion, it may be something that, not that they're way, way behind, but it may be something that they're not quite at the forefront on. It's a fascinating story about what Bama just did. But I think it does kind of speak to this. Yes, I think within 3 years, especially with all 3 of those years being in the SEC, I think Texas will step up in that department.
By the way, Alabama's not doing with their general manager what I would do with my general manager if I were in charge of a college football team. So
true.
Who knows? Maybe that's a conversation, if not today, later today. And finally, buy or sell number 5. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Here it is.
I was inspired by the 90s buy or sell yesterday between Stacey Dash and Elizabeth Berkley.
Okay.
So I've decided to go back to the well.
Okay.
We're going 1990s Aerosmith video girls.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. Okay. So I know one of them.
Silverstone in her prime.
Ooh.
Hotter than Liv Tyler.
Prime on prime, hotter than.
Prime on prime.
Alicia Silverstone. Hotter than Liv Tyler. It's a really good battle because both have that, like, they could just knock you out by pouting. They both are very good at pouting and being sexy. So I'm thinking of like Liv in Armageddon, right? Liv was literally the reason to either have the dad.
So hot that Ben Affleck is playing with animal crackers on her stomach.
Yeah, it's a great scene, by the way. Great scene. Underrated movie. So, boy, that's great. My gut says to buy really close and go Silverstone.
Do you have a reason why?
Okay, since it's a hotter than, and we have multiple examples in the Aerosmith videos of her just exuding hotness, I'm going to say she has a little bit of a lead. I have seen her.
I always wondered, like, he protected Liv. Liv got in the videos.
Right. There's a little more.
But he didn't make her like the star because he didn't want to do that to his daughter.
She projected a little more of the sweetness than Alicia did in the movie. She's obviously not, it's not just about her being, hot, even though she is. So I'm going to go with Silverstone. I'm buying.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying I don't know that you actually gave me an answer.
It's a good battle. No, I did. I did give you the answer. I think it's Silverstone. I absolutely do.
I'm in the chat now because I'm done asking questions. I can go look. What do we say? What's going on in the chat? What do we agree? Everybody's buy?
Somebody says Tyler has the body for the win. There's a sell. So that's another Tyler. There's a buy. That's Silverstone. And then somebody says Liv was way hotter. Way hotter. Brandon, I would just disagree. I don't know what it is. It's just
like I said, I don't know what I still, even after listening to you, I'm still dumbfounded by what I think on that.
Yeah, there's a buy, there's a sell. Matt, whatever you do, please don't let this be part of your discussion. As Batgirl, nope. That's don't do that. Let's have a man's game here.
That just changed his answer.
Let's have a man girl. No, let's have a man. Well, Matt's saying that's part of it. That in the Batgirl suit, she was attractive in the Batgirl suit. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Wait a minute. Now
I know what you're going to.
Yeah, sorry. Tucker had to throw it in.
Tucker.
Stacy Keebler versus Lita just got you, Chad.
Tucker.
No.
Tucker.
You didn't just get me, Tucker. This one's not that difficult.
Tucker.
Lita would pick Keebler. That's
Look, and the thing is, I love Lita. Tucker.
Me too.
Tucker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Come on,
yeah.
man.
Come on. All right. Let me see. Do we have? I don't see any super chats right now. That's Catches 5, buy or sells. Catch, here we go. Let me start with Texas football. Buy or sell number 1. When Sark says 7 wide receivers will rotate, you believe him against Colorado State. We'll see about Michigan.
The way you've asked the question, if 7 guys play, does that count as rotating? Define rotate.
All 7 guys will
play in the first half.
All 7 guys will get multiple snaps by halftime.
Sell.
Okay.
I'm going to need to see it to believe it. It's hard for me to believe that. I'm not ready to buy that. No.
Yeah, we have seen Sark early in a season in a non-conference get super creative, and then things aren't as super creative down the line. So it takes.
Now you've planted a seed in my brain where when I watch the opener, I'm going to be counting reps for all the receivers as best I can.
Yeah, it takes ultimate guts to do it in the big house. We'll see if he does it. Catch, buy or sell number 2. Back to the running backs. Trey Wisner, 500 yards rushing and 120 receiving. Passes both those numbers easily.
That's a good question. I'm going to sell.
Okay.
The number that popped into my head before I got the screen covered. So I saw Trey Wisner. 484 yards rushing popped into my head.
Wow. Okay.
So I think it's going to be close. Yeah. And that number could jump up dramatically depending on Jaden Blue, depending on a couple of other factors as well. I might end up being wrong about this, but 484 popped into my head. I need to lean on those instincts, right? At least in buy or sell. So sell.
There you go. All right, Catch, buy or sell number 3. So far, you like the NFL's new kickoff?
Sell. No opinion.
No,
I can't use the word like.
As much as I would love to do the same, or as much as I would love to do something else, I agree with you. I was kind of a fan of the theory of it. I haven't seen enough to make me actually like it yet. I'm not sure if it's a great idea. I did read today it's pushed the average start out 4 yards. 4.4 yards.
I'm neutral, and I don't know. I may be neutral in 5 years. I don't know.
I know. Me too. And hey, if in 5 years they got less injured players, then it's a win. Then it's a victory. All right, buy or sell number 4, back to college football. Catch, Florida State plays Saturday morning, as we mentioned, 11 a.m., ESPN. They are your pick to win the ACC and go to the playoff.
I have not given 5 seconds thought about the ACC title race this season.
How dare you? First off, how dare you?
I'm just, you know what? Sell.
There you go.
Dabo and Klubnik bounce back. That's what I'm saying now.
Okay.
I'm halfway full of like crap and just joking, but there's another part of me that really believes that Cade Klubnik's got another level that he can reach, and if he does, Dabo might be back in the driver's seat in the ACC. I don't know what to completely make of Florida State yet.
Yeah.
I'll know a little bit more on Saturday how I feel about Florida State.
Yeah, Catch again. Florida State, Georgia Tech to start this Saturday. Keep this in mind. This season, they will host Clemson. They will go to Miami, and they will go to Notre Dame. All of those games are on Florida State's schedule, something to pay attention to. And again, Uiagalelei is the quarterback, at least starting out. All right, Ketch, let's round it out with some music. Buy or sell number 5. Robert Plant is 76 years old today.
Okay.
On the Mount Rushmore of rock and roll frontmen, it's Plant and Jagger in 2 spots. Then start the discussion.
I mean,
you got 3 guys you want to put up? 3, or for that matter, three guys, 2 guys and a girl, 3 people you'd want to put up to kick one of those guys out?
The thing is, the default position on this is to be like, whoa, where's John and Paul?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think of them as front men.
Yeah.
That in a way that Jagger and Plant are front men at a stadium tour with 50,000. You almost can't be in the front men discussion unless you've done tours in football stadiums. So
yeah,
kind of eliminates a little bit. Like, I can't say that when Paul's in with the Wings, that it's the same as Plant with Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a probable buy. I really want to spend more time on this question than we have time to spend on it. It's probably a buy.
Yeah. It also would be, if you want to get really nerdy, you could define what a front man actually is and whether or not that person has a guitar or not. Like, do you kick somebody out? Like, again, like Paul, right? Paul's playing bass. Was he a front man or not? Like, to me, when I think front man, that person's not playing a guitar for some reason. It's just a singer. It's a lead singer, front man, front woman, whatever you want. Gwen Stefani and No Doubt.
Yeah, but there are examples of front men.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you what do we do with Bruce? If somebody said, I think Bruce is ahead of either one of those 2 guys,
well,
fighting them on that?
Ketch, you know me. I'm a big metal guy. So if you want to put Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden ahead of both of these guys, I'm willing to have the discussion.
It's very flexible of you.
You meant Springsteen. I'm sorry. I don't know.
I'm just curious.
I think that's a good question. I don't know how to factor, because my discussion would start with like the Freddie Mercurys and that go down that line. But
can we have a lot of Queen's music sucked.
Wow. I'm trying to say happy birthday to Robert Plant and you're ripping on Queen's catalog.
Well, no, like I'm saying that one of the things that I think about both Plant and Jagger is I think the music, I think there's enough of it. Because if we were just talking about who the best frontman was, then Freddie Mercury's probably as good as any. But if you're putting him on, Queen's music sucks. There's like, I've done the deep dive on Queen. I've listened to every album that Queen ever produced. There's a lot of sucking on that, man. And some of it, you're doing like the bicycle song and you're like, what the fuck am I listening to? Why?
Okay. So just to circle back around, happy birthday, Robert Plant today, 76 years old for Robert Plant. Oh my God. I did not intend that at all. Some people.
Because I think you could make a real strong case for Freddie Mercury being the number 1 overall frontman of all time.
Yeah.
But he's not on a band that I think warrants, not to say that Queen's not an all-time great band, but there are levels to this.
Yeah. Well, maybe that gives him extra points. If you're such a good frontman that I'm going to think of you, even though your band might not be elite, doesn't that make you a pretty badass frontman?
The thing is, I don't think the band sucks. I think the music sucks.
But you think he's a good enough frontman to be in this discussion. Right?
He is. Yes.
Okay. That's a great frontman. That's what we're talking about. I didn't say greatest rock band Mount Rushmore. I said frontmen.
Right,
not
but I
like,
feel like the quality of the band elevates. I mean, but look, what do we do with Jagger and the Stones? They are like arguably the greatest band of all time, but he's not as good of a frontman as Plant is. I don't think.
Yeah, that's a different discussion. We're just talking about Mount Rushmore. I'm just trying to get the
look, I will sell, and I'll put Freddie Mercury as the number one frontman of all time.
Wow.
On a band that kind of sucked.
There we go. We eventually got there. Not only does he put somebody above Jagger or Plant, he put Freddie above both of them. Kick Plant and Jagger out. Make sure Freddie's there. Then start your discussion. I love it. Yeah. Fantastic. That's well done.
That's right. What, if anybody wants to argue with me, I'll take the video of Freddie at Live Aid, which, by the way, his most famous thing where he's doing like the back and forth with the audience. It's not a great song. They're not playing a song, and they play that radio goo goo gaga shit. That song sucks. The song sucked in the 80s. It's not any better now because Freddie's dead. It's like of all the songs they chose to sing at Live Aid, that Radio Gaga song, come on. Again, Freddie's amazing. When we talk about Freddie as a frontman, though, they'll put the video on from Live Aid, and he's not singing a Queen song. He's doing the, he's doing the call back and forth.
Just check my phone. Rami Malek is on the show tomorrow.
That dude didn't deserve an Oscar.
I swear I'm not trying to pile on. I didn't even realize. Now you're going to Oscar snob Rami Malek?
Yes.
Wow.
Big time.
Anything else? Have you always thought that Brian May was overrated as a guitar player? What else do we need to talk about?
I think Brian May is excellent. I don't like the music they make, but he's incredibly gifted.
Okay. Fair enough. Wow.
And I like the band. Like, I like them as human beings. I would hang out with the guys in Queen. They're my kind of people.
That'd be a hell of a party.
Okay. I'm just saying. Could we, remember when we asked Al Green if he listens to his own music?
Yeah.
I hope the guys at Queen don't listen to their own music. That if we were hanging out with a band from Queen, that they're playing Zeppelin.
Damn. Wow. I am so glad I said happy birthday to Robert Plant. We got a lot of musical feelings out of Jeff Ketchum today. If you want to have that, frontman discussion with Jeff Ketchum, you hit him up on orangebloods.com and have it. Now, if you want to come have that discussion with me, you can come out to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. We'll have some cocktails and talk about it on Saturday. We're heading out there to celebrate Sherry's birthday. At least that's what I'm telling her. I'm just heading out there to drink. Now I'm going to do both because that's normally what we end up doing around this time. You know what? I'm just looking at my watch. I think it's today. I think today's Sherry's actual birthday. I got to make sure to call her, tell her happy birthday. We're going to tell her happy birthday on Saturday. Come on out and check it out. There are your hours. This is slightly updated from what I've had up. I saw some updated hours today. So Thursdays, 12 to 7. Friday and Saturday, 11 to 7. Sunday, 12 to 5. The beautiful Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. I'm going to get me some of that Crimson Creek Smokehouse barbecue. I'm going to get me some of those cocktails. I am probably not going to be doing the flights this weekend, but you can do that. That's what's in the lower right there. Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Enjoy it responsibly. Do what I'm doing. Get your DD ready to drive you out there. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing. My lovely wife will be our designated driver on Saturday.
Hey, Chad, let's wrap up with this, okay?
Okay.
I just got a press release from the University of Texas.
Yes.
Came in 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
It's Texas Athletics and Texas A&M Athletics to make announcement regarding Lone Star Showdown.
This is the meeting that the
this
fans
is the press conference on Thursday.
Okay.
So it's got the who, the what, the when, the where, the more info, the connect or the contact. I can tell you what this is.
Okay.
It's a sponsorship for the Lone Star Showdown. The fact that they actually are calling this game. Have you ever called this fucking game, the Lone Star Showdown?
Not on a regular basis, no. I mean, when they had State Farm as a sponsor and they made up that trophy thing, that is what they called it. It was the the State Farm Lone Star Showdown for a while, but I never called it that. No. Right.
But they're going to call that this moving forward. And if you look at the press release, there's no sponsor for that.
So there's no sponsor listed, so they're going to announce the sponsor on Thursday.
This is going to be a sponsor. Who knows? It may be State Farm when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
For those of you, though, that are like, oh, my God, are they going to make this a home and home? They're not going to make it a home and home. Neutral site.
There you go.
It's one of those things. Sometimes you just got to go with Blutarski and let him go. And that was one of them. But I did catch myself after you stopped me. They don't say what any of this is about, that there's just going to be an announcement, but it's really hard not to notice that they're calling this thing, by the way, this is the what part of the press release, okay? The legendary Lone Star Showdown is making its highly anticipated return after a 12-year hiatus. The legendary Lone Star Showdown? Who's ever said that?
Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. There's no need for you to go picking back through the rivalry.
This is going to be an amazing game this year. It's going to be incredible. But the legendary Lone Star, stop.
You cannot let your football OCD take over and go analyze the whole history of the rivalry. It's legendary. It's the state of Texas, damn it. It's Longhorns and Aggies. Leave it alone.
Because here's what they're going to try to make us do. They're going to try to make us say that.
Well, no.
The All-State Lone Star Showdown. I feel like that's going to be part of the vernacular. Whoever's calling the game from a TV standpoint, they're going to say the All-State the legendary All-State Lone Star.
Yeah. They're going to do that because somebody's going to be paying them to do that. We are going to go with House Divided. That's what we're going to call it.
What if they called the rivalry House Divided? We haven't trademarked our name. If they did that, would you feel like they were bumping us out of the name? Or would you feel like now our name is more made than ever, more now than ever before?
Yeah, the last one. I'd probably think the last one, that they realized that's what the game should be called. Phil says just Texas A&M. It's all that needs to be said. Phil, I agree. Most of the time, I agree. Then I heard House Divided and thought, that's a good way to say it too. But
Makes me think of Office Space when they're talking to Michael Bolton and he's like, and the one guy's name, you ever thought about changing your name? He's like, why should I change my name? He's the one with his music sucks.
He's the one who sucks. Yeah, no, we don't have to do that. This would be a good idea. I hope that Binks is so right on this, that they're announcing that Lone Star is the sponsor. The beer should sponsor the game. That won't happen because I think both already have their beers figured out. I believe Texas went back to Bud Light.
I believe so.
And I think the Aggies are Coors Light.
You'd have to tell me. I don't know that.
I think the Aggies are Coors or Miller. I can't remember.
Interesting that A&M, never mind. In the event that Coors ever wants to be a sponsor, I won't say the words lizard piss.
Yeah, please don't do that. Don't do that. Because how dare you? Because that is that's my light beer of choice. Of the big
I don't even have a personal opinion on that. I just heard somebody once say the words lizard piss, and I've just always stuck with me.
I was going to say, between the two of us, I think
you are the beer connoisseur.
If consuming the beer gives you the right to discuss it, I think I've consumed a little bit more Coors Light than you have.
I've probably had more lizard piss, if I'm being completely honest.
Do you go straight lizard piss, or do you go lizard piss light just to keep it,
healthy? 151 in lizard piss. Like that's what you do.
That's a 6-star general
really
right there.
Takes the sting out of the taste, if you will.
Ketch called up the Rivals people. He was at a bar and he said, I just came up with this 6-star Add lizard piss. Call him. Oh my
We have
God.
one super chat. People quit calling me.
Hooked on the Horns. $5. Chad, the Longhorns do have a legendary lead in the rivalry. Well done, Hooked. Well done. Yes, they do have a lead. I guess you would call that lead legendary. I believe, what was it? I think I did the math on that at one point, that the Aggies would have to win. Is it like 38 in a row? 39?
74, 37, and 5?
It's like 30 something in a row they'd have to win, right? Without Texas winning a game to tie it up. I mean, it's stupid. Yeah.
My favorite thing about the A&M Texas rivalry is that you have the record, the overall record, right? And then you'll have Aggies who will say things like, and look, I'm not judging this at all. It's
I can tell. I can tell there's no judgment.
No, there's this is completely fair. When Billy Lucci goes on Twitter and says, hey, if you go back 50 years and you look at the rivalry over the course of the last 50 years, I think it's pretty even.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are Texas fans, though, that will just say, what if we just go back 30 years, right? However long you got to go back to 95, I guess. So almost 30 years. Because there's that window. Texas fans want to take the Mac Brown years with a little sprinkle of the end of Makovic.
Thank you, Hooked. I'm right. How about that? By the way, real quick, Texas fans, how about that for irony? Aggies would have to win 39 in a row to tie the rivalry up. When's the last time the Aggies won the national title? 1939. There you go. There's a little gift for you today. Go ahead. A lot of 39s. That's all I'm saying.
Because I can't, it's got a 9 in it. My brain can't help itself. I just think I'm amused that both fan bases want the framing of the rivalry to be on a very specific. The Aggies obviously want it to be from the 80s to the mid 90s, that there's a decade there where what A&M lost one and just pile drive Texas left and right.
Yeah.
And that's, if you're going back 50 years, you're going back at least in the record keeping part of this to kind of the beginning of when Cheryl shows up. Just a little bit before that, I guess.
But I guess my only thing would be, you know me, Catch, I'm always trying to make both things to be true. I'm trying to see both sides of it. Like, both of those things are true. What annoys me is if the other fan base just really like freaked out about it. Like,
oh, they do.
Because there's no, I mean, the entire
Chad, I watched on Sunday this argument breakout.
But
that's why I bring it up in the first place.
Yeah, I get because to me, you can't deny, just like the fan just brings it up, the total rivalry and all that stuff. It's obvious numbers. Like it is what it is. But is it like years ago, I looked, it was while they weren't playing. It was just a few years ago. And I looked up the rivalry and was one. Since I was born, it's 1918 Aggies. Now, Catch, do you think I remember that because I'm an Aggie and it somehow makes me feel better? Or do you think I just looked it up? Like,
I think you just looked it up.
Because that, to me, is the truth. Whatever that number was going to be, I was just going to regurgitate the number. And I use that number to say that's why the game matters more to me than it does to some other Aggies and maybe even some other Longhorns. Because in my life, it's that close. But I'm not saying that to say, you know what that means? A&M's better. Might drop. No.
The thing about this whole discussion is that Texas fans believe in their heart of hearts that the stretch under Cheryl in the 80s leading up to Slocum in the 90s, that it's invalidated and it doesn't count. That the number is like 74, 37, 5, whatever it is. But in their minds, it's really like 74, 25. Texas fans, and it's super ironic because of the era that we now live in that we describe as just and fair. But Texas fans do not acknowledge that any of the losses from the 80s or early 90s they put an asterisk on those, and they say those don't count because Aggie was cheating.
You think the players that played for Texas in those games would agree with that?
I don't think Texas fans care. You tell yourself what you have to tell yourself to sleep at night. And what the Texas football players might think of those games doesn't matter to 100% of Texas fans.
Man, yeah, that's a weird way to think about it. Like, let's assume that if that argument is accurate, then let's take the 42-10 game. What is it in the real world? Like, if you're a fan on the Texas side and you believe that it was dirty, no good, slimy, awful cheating.
It is Lance Armstrong's Tour de France's.
Take the cheating away. What happens? You want it to be a null and void game and it doesn't count? Or do you want to just say
telling you? They're not saying they win those games. They're saying those games do not count in the record books.
Because it was an unfair advantage.
They cheated, Chad.
I see. Okay.
Cheated.
Fair enough.
Cheated.
All right. Have we
look, here's where I come in on this. I was a big Baylor fan for the majority of the 80s and early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really until I started going to Texas that it was like, okay, well, I'm a University of Texas student. I guess I'm a Longhorn, right? I mean, going to a school has a way of changing your allegiance levels. So I stopped being a Baylor fan. But from the first time I ever saw Baylor play was against A&M in 83. Oof. 83 through 93-ish, 94. I graduated from McCallum in 94. That entire stretch, you remember it, right?
I do.
Essentially, the entire stretch, I was a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
I don't view A&M as that era doesn't count. That it's Reggie Bush's Heisman season. He won it, and I think really it's more because I guess they gave it back to him, right? Did they do that recently?
I think they have finally gotten around to doing that.
They take it, they give it, they take it, they give it. I can't keep up with the Downtown Heisman Club. But it's a little bit like the Tour de France, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, Lance won. But if you look in Wikipedia, how many Tour de France's did Lance Armstrong win? There are none listed.
Right.
And I think that's the way Texas fans look at A&M in the mid-'80s to mid-'90s. But I'm telling you, I don't have that same thing. I give the A&M football teams during that time a ton of respect. And I don't think Texas fans give them any respect. But I don't think A&M fans look at the Mac Brown years from 2000 through 2009. I don't think they do the exact same thing. I don't think they go, but they cheated. I don't know. There's a weird little thing with the rivalry that's a little bit different from side to side. But I've always found it, considering how obsessed Texas fans were to reverse the trend from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s, I've always just noticing of how little respect they give those A&M teams.
Speaking of respect, if there is some sort of mark or asterisk or discussion that needs to happen about those games, update me. How big of an asterisk do we put on Michigan from last year? Like, is it a little one? Is it a big one? Or because
it's the new decal on the side of the helmet.
Because can't every Washington fan play the "they cheated" card? Like, they cheated. Like, they cheated in a way that affected the games cheated. A&M players in the 80s just got bags of money from interesting sources. Like, last year, they were sending a dude.
Well, that's the thing. Now, all A&M was doing was NIL.
Michigan was sending a spy to Penn State non-conference games. That's cheating. That's cheating.
You know what we're watching right now, guys? The fan of a cheater trying to justify cheating.
No, that's not what you're watching. You're watching a fan trying to get the clear definition of what we mean when we say cheating. That's a very different thing. Now, here's what I'll allow, Catch. If people want to somehow, if Longhorn fans want to somehow invalidate what the Aggies did for, was it 9 out of 10 years? 9 out of 10, I think it's right. In the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s, like you're talking about.
94.
84, 94. If they would like to use the word dirty and it makes them feel better and they can somehow compute that in their brain, that's fine. The word cheating is probably, especially since what we just saw in Ann Arbor, let's separate those two terms. Okay? There's dirty against the rules, and then you're butthurt about it. And then there's cheating. We sent a guy to film other teams from the sideline, sometimes in their clothes. Like
Thank God this happened so that you now have this crutch to, because you're not wrong. You're not. They cheated. You know, it may be like, you know, are y'all dating, or are you dating? Right?
Yeah.
It may be that you guys in the 80s were dating, but Michigan last year was dating.
Yeah. No,
it's
fair.
not cheating.
That is an interesting way. I did not realize that a lot of Texas fans were looking at the rivalry that way. Just
they never can just say, God damn, A&M was really good. They cannot. It's like Arthur Fonzarelli trying to say the word wrong.
Right.
It's always got to be, oh man, the Aggies had really good teams, but ...
Right.
Fill in the blanks. They were cheating. They were paying their players. They were, you know, it wasn't an even playing field. It's all of these things that, you know, at the end of the day, as a neutral from that time period, I don't do that. Aggies out there, you need to know the guy that you hate, this guy. I respect those teams from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s. They were excellent. No asterisks, no buts. Outstanding.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. I don't really, you know, I don't care what you've thought of the first however many years.
Clearly, you don't care.
We're getting the game back. That's what's important.
The Lone Star Showdown, Chad, legendary.
I don't let the rest of them call it what they want. We're going to call it House Divided. We're almost 100 days until they kick. By the way, there's two other things they could announce on Thursday in addition to a sponsor. They could tell us exactly what day it's going to occur, and they could also give us a kick time. Like maybe. Now, TV's probably going to wait and push that thing, but Catch, I would love for them to let us know on Thursday that they're going to lock it on Saturday, and it's a 7:00 kick. That would be a hell of a week.
Chad, I just realized it's 2:00. I got to go.
All right. Thank y'all for liking and subscribing and getting your notifications. Football with Friends at 6. Old Fashioned tomorrow morning at 9. 10 o'clock is the recruiting hour. It's Fasusi Day tomorrow, so you know we'll be talking about that in the recruiting hour at 10 o'clock. Outsiders tomorrow night at 8:30 as we get a little closer. It'll be 10 days till kickoff when we talk to you tomorrow. Be safe. Thank you for jumping in. Thanks to over 540 of you that are in there as we get ready to close the door till noon tomorrow. Hey, go check out orangebloods.com. Another day of all that cool auction stuff to benefit Texas baseball, NIL, and benefit your collection as well. Y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We're House Divided.